Hey everyone, Travis Rudros here, and we are back from the Omaha ReRaise, and man oh man do I have a special collection of guests today. We have, in order, places 1, 2, 3, and all the way bottom at 16, that's me. We have Sam Prime. Sam, how are you, sir?
Hey guys, I'm doing good.
Awesome. We have Mohammad as well. How are you?
Hey, nice to see you.
Excellent. And last but certainly not least, Mr. Kyle Peters. Kyle, how are you?
Howdy, doing great.
Excellent. For those of you who don't know, at the ReRaise in Omaha, which was the 15th, 16th of July, Sam Prime took first place, Mohammad came in second, Kyle came in third, and I was in 16th. There wasn't an official top 16, but had they done a top cut of 16, I would have been in there, and then Sam and I could have duked it out in round one, so that would have been fun. But that was my goal. When I went, I wanted to make top 16, so I was happy that I made that. Sam, I can't imagine you were too disappointed with your finish, since you can't get any better than that. But Mohammad, Kyle, I know Kyle, you were thinking of maybe not even going at all, period. So were you pretty happy with how you did?
Yeah, with the limited amount of testing I had, and I can't really argue with the result. I also knew going in that Ice Earth would be a weakness. I just didn't know how many people would play it. I did think possibly it'd be Sam and Zaim playing it, but I don't. At the end of the day, I never know what they're playing, man. I have no idea. There's no predicting you guys. I'll say that right now. But outside of you two, I don't think. I mean, nobody else brought Ice Earth, I don't think, right? So, I mean, I guess I'm kind of in that ballpark of. I guess I made a good decision. So,
Sam, Mohammad, either of you can answer this. I'm assuming you mainly brought it because you thought soirees were going to be as prevalent as they were. Was there any other things that led to your decision to bring it, or is it just it beats up on soirees and that's what I want to do?
No, I hadn't played a single soiree matchup yet. I tested zero. I brought it because I was able to beat up on Ice Fire with it. And I thought Ice Fire was going to be a deck that was a little bit more represented. Because with Moshri gone, EX Burst made it worse. So I thought people will be onto how good Ice Fire is. I still think Ice Fire is very good. And I felt like I had just the most matches against Ice Fire, and I felt good about the matchup. And Soiree was kind of just like a side casualty.
I think when Sam and we talked a lot about the deck, and we discussed Soiree, of course, but we figured, okay, if people don't kind of change their game plan with Soiree and how they play it, Arcanist is just going to shut them down.
Yeah.
So can we deal with everything else? And for the most part, yes. I think Icewind might have been the most difficult matchup I had in general, but overall, I think the deck had a pretty good field against everything we faced this event.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I wanted to ask, was there a certain deck type that you were afraid of? I know you mentioned Icewind. Were there any others you thought would give you a lot of trouble?
So the deck that I was considering the second most to play was Monowind with the lightning, the new lightning, and that deck was really good. And so before, again, I'd only tested Ice Fire. That's quite literally it. That's the only matchup I tested. I tested hundreds of games though against my buddy Travis. When we showed up and Zaim was piloting the Monowind deck, I sent him the list from Japan that I wanted him to test, and he was beating up pretty bad on the Ice Earth deck.
Is that with Fat Chocobo? Fat Chocobo?
No,
okay.
Fat Chocobo. Just a Category 4 control engine.
Oh, okay.
It's a really good deck. But we made some changes to the list. And I think that once we made the changes, it felt like an easy matchup. And I don't think that there was. I don't want to play against Icewind just because it does unfair things.
Mm-hmm.
And our deck's really just trying to slow the game down. And I think Icewind also wants that.
Yeah.
But other than Icewind, I don't think we were really afraid of anything.
Yeah, so I think the upgrade.
And I was like, oh, I'm worried about this matchup. Unless it was Matt Okimoto sitting down with Icewind, then I would probably be a little bit nervous. Other than that, it's whatever.
Yeah, and I think the one addition we made, I think basically near the end with Gentia, we added 2 of those, and that was such a good counter because as soon as their monsters turn sideways, they're off.
Yeah.
They shut down, and I think that happened even on stream with one of my matches. I think it was against Icewind when he swung with Typhoon, and as soon as he swung, I'm like, okay.
Yeah, just nothing happens. It just accepts a monster. That's pretty. Well, so you two at Icer, Kyle, you're playing soirees, and it's hard to imagine soirees is afraid of anything. Was there anything you were worried about, or did you feel, I'm soirees, I can kind of do whatever I feel like?
So I audibled the soiree because I didn't have very much time for testing. It's very rare for me to audible to something. So under my normal testing environment, um, I pick a deck at the beginning of the week and I stick with it, whether it's the right decision or not. I stick with it because I want to be comfortable with what I'm going to play for that weekend.
Yeah.
That's how it is. Whether it's a like a tier 2 deck or not, whatever. Like I'm committing to it fully. It is what it is. I might change a card here or there, but no, I'm going to commit to it. I don't want to have that last second thought. I don't want to change too much. I want to go into the tournament confident. I don't want to go into the thinking, am I going to make the right decision or not? No, I just want that preparation already done and that decision already done. I kind of did that last second with Soiree. But if I had more testing, so when they announced the Moshery ban and they announced it for LWG, I was testing like every single win deck out there, including the one that has already been brought up. I actually put that in our chat here if you want to reference it.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, I tested every win deck under the sun, and they were all performing great. The only issue being aggro again, right? So a lot of them did lose to aggro, and Lightning solved a lot of that issue. So by default, I was like, okay, without having testing, and just last second showing to this tournament, I'm just gonna play Soiree Lightning in it. It seems pretty decent, pretty good, because in your bad hands, Lightning is good. In your good hands, Lightning is it's always good. I had a round in the tournament where I opened up like Madam into Irwin, no backups, nothing, and then turn 2 I played Lightning, and I won because I was so aggressive like that. In my opinion, like without Lightning and stuff like that, I'm still kind of in a not great position. Like the only other card that can compare to some kind of aggression like that's Kadaj, I think. That's about it. But as for like my decision making for the tournament, Icewind was actually up there for me. It was winning a lot. You feel hopeless when you play Soiree against Icewind.
I Eureka was telling me that like in a lot of the Japanese matchups that Icewind would just shut down Soiree. He's like, nope, I don't care. I'll just block you out or whatever. Sorry, continue.
Yeah, it's very good. Like Icewind is very good against Soiree. But I tested Guardians, I tested Fire Wind, tested Mono Wind. Yeah, I did all of that. And they were all pretty close. Like they were all good. They were all their own flavors, but I just didn't have that much time. So I basically decided at the last second I'm either going to play Soiree or Avalanche. I think I would have done pretty well with Avalanche too. I don't think there were that many players there playing Avalanche. I also think that Techaton Chair is in a decent spot right now. So I don't know. I don't know if I regret my decision playing Soiree or not, but I'll take it. 3rd place.
So you face Sam on stream, and obviously he's got a kind of Soiree counter deck. You knew it was going to be rough going in because Arcanist is just does what it does to that deck. Was there any key card you were looking for in that matchup? Anything that you thought, hey, maybe this is my out? Or did you kind of always think, this is just going to be, take nearly a miracle to pull off?
So in our first game, damage 1 was that card. The first damage he dealt to me was Fusoya. So now I'll say this too, and I brought this up in my video, was like in Soiree, I haven't done too much research on this, but just my ideas. Because Arcanist was on my radar. There aren't that many answers to the card. There's only like delaying the inevitable kind of effects. Like even if I draw the Fusoya and I bounce an Arcanist, okay, if the Ice Earth players plays it well, they board wipe next turn. It doesn't matter, and then also play the Arcanist. So the issue is if I need to bounce the Arcanist, not get board wiped, and then win the next turn. I need to win. It can't be do 2 or 3 damage. No, I need to win because bouncing the Arcanist it buys me 1 turn, exactly 1 turn. So and that's also not even including what if they have 2 Arcanists?
Yeah.
Like that's really bad for me. So it's not even really an answer. It's just like a delay kind of thing. And I don't know off the top of my head what I would play to do something about that. I think the actual answer is diversify your forward numbers. Like play 2 drop, 3 drop, 4 drop, 5 drop, 6 drop, maybe 7 drops. Like just play everything. I think that's the actual solution. But I mean, Fusoya and 9CP Leviathan were on my radar to possibly play, but they don't really answer Arcanist.
Yeah, especially because even if you can bounce it that turn before they bounce it, they can still use the Arcanist effect. All right, well, I'm still stopping you this turn, so you then still got to wait a whole nother turn. And I had a friend who played a Sworai list, and she had in Pekiota and Cecil and I think like Kieran, and so she actually wasn't as hampered by the Arcanist. She had a pretty diverse forward lineup. Sam, did you and Mohammad, since you both played the same deck, did you ever feel aggressive, or were you legit just, I'm just going to stall, I'm just going to sit there, keep you from attacking, whittle your hand down with things like Orphan and Scale Toad and Biblos, and just, was that kind of the game plan, or?
Yeah, I had to learn that the hard way, because when I was learning from Sam, I'm like, the level of, the way you have to play this deck is a lot different than I'm used to, and it does take a little bit more like long-term planning. And when I was testing against him, I just started learning this deck a while ago, and I was like attacking and pushing and putting him at 3, and Sam's like, bro, my monster's now live, your thing is dead, like why are you attacking me? Just bring me down to no resources, then take control of the game, then you bring out the boss, that's how you win this match. So it is just a lot more different than most of the decks I've played.
Yep. Is the boss Physalis, or who's the boss?
The boss is Physalis.
Okay, I assumed as much.
Well, I mean, like Lightning is kind of a boss, but like what the deck hinges on is putting you in a position where you have to go to 1 card in hand because of Scale Toad, and then Unileska takes out that card, which is obviously when Physalis is like just a bomb.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like the old Magic decks where it's like protect your Baneslayer Angel, and Physalis also being a 5-drop like a Baneslayer Angel was like really kind of justice, which is why I named the deck, Blue White Draw Go. I just knew that if you could protect a Physalis, there's very few cards in the metagame that can get you as many resources as Physalis can, including like dual freezing, actual backups, monsters. There's just not a lot of things that do that. That's the boss monster is Physalis.
Excellent. So I have a question for all of you, and I'll kind of give my thoughts on this too. If Mashri hadn't been banned, I want to know if that would have changed what you did. Because, so for anyone who doesn't know, I took Matiski's loop deck, and the reason I took it was because watching Okimoto stomp everybody with the super heavy burst version at Dallas, I was like, I don't want to swing into these bursts, and just give them this. I was like, oh wait, if I loop them, I don't ever have to actually attack. I just mill them out. So that was when I originally came up with that idea, and I basically have Chris's list. I changed a few things, but Chris gave me the list. We talked a lot, and I practiced a lot, and then they announced the Mashri ban, and I was like, oh crap, like Kadaj is going to be the instant slot in. He's going to start hitting away my break zone, and Matiski was like, yeah, I don't know if I'd play that. I was like, but I've already practiced with it so much, so I kind of felt like I wanted to stick with it. So that influenced my deck decisions a lot. If Mashri hadn't been banned, would it have changed anything for any of you, or had you all been like, nah, I'm just sticking with what I got?
To be fair, Kadaj is good, but Kadaj is like old technology, man. Like,
right?
Like Lightning is just way, way, way better in almost every single deck you can possibly put it in. I mean, it's great in aggro decks. It's great in control decks. So that's where I would hinge. I wouldn't really hinge on Kadaj. If Mashri was still illegal, I mean, I was testing Ice Earth for Mashri, so I would have still played Ice Earth. I definitely would have had Mist Dragons in my deck, and that's probably the most noticeable thing is people notice I'm not playing any Mist Dragon. I think that without Mashri, you don't need Mist Dragon. But yeah, I mean, if Mashri was legal, I would have still played this. I would have just had a slightly different deck list, and I would have had a slightly less good time, probably.
Yeah.
Mashri is just not very... in my opinion, Mashri is not fun to play against.
Yeah.
And it is very much like... And it is also a counter to, hey, discard your hand. Okay. Draw Mashri, draw 6 cards. I'm back in this game.
That's fair. Mohammad, since you played the same deck, any different feelings, or do you agree with Sam?
No, I agree with him. I mean, just think about the orphan, right? Like we're trying to go into tap phase to discard another. Nope,
Yeah.
you're just gonna bounce it. Your hand is at 0. We want to play things. No, we're just gonna go ahead and redraw. It definitely makes the deck face a harder time.
Yeah. What about you, Kyle?
I agree with Sam on the Mist Dragon point. The most common mode, I had two. I don't even remember our deck list anymore. I had 2 Mist Dragons in my deck, and the most common mode I played was prevent damage. Like not even canceling a summon. That doesn't seem like it's a worse Titan then, right? Like there are a lot of times I'm just like attack with my 8K, they block with an 8K, and I'm like prevent my damage. Like that's not what I want to be doing. But yeah, so I agree with that. My first instinct when they did the announcement for the Moshri ban was kind of like what you said: cut Moshri, add Kadaj.
Yeah.
And then I realized how good Lightning was, and then I thought about that. But yeah, I don't want to get into a big Moshri, whether it should have gone discussion or not, kind of a thing. But with that gone, a lot of forwards came back to being playable, like Orphan. Like that's like Versatile. I haven't touched Versatile for a while for a reason. I know Cody Snodgrass has been playing it for a little bit, but I'm off of it because just think about it. Like I play all these 5-drop forwards. I can't play Ignacio reliably anymore because they just play Moshri and bounce it. Like that's not okay when I'm discarding 2 cards to play it. Now same thing with like aggro. A lot of aggressive decks can't really be aggressive in a Moshri format. So with it gone, that's kind of unleashing the floodgates of time to be aggressive again.
Yeah.
So now I would have said if Moshri didn't get banned, I am changing like 2 cards out of Okimoto's burst deck and playing it. Like Braska inside of Soiree and that Moshri stuff. Oh, so good, like phenomenal. So that's probably what I would have done. I can't really think of anything else I would have possibly played, but that's
I still would have played Lightning. Lightning itself, though, by the way, gets a lot worse in a
with Moshri. Tell me about that, Sam. Since this is kind of a new card, tell me 1 why you like this card so much, and 2 why does Moshri make her so much worse?
Let me just say first up again. I like Kyle touched on already. I think Lightning is good in the aggro decks too. But when you play in Earth decks with Sid Sophia, where you can steal their haste off of their forwards and give it to Lightning, it becomes nuts. Like Lightning is okay at slowing the board down, and that's kind of what it does, right? Like doling their guys to attack. In the ice matchup, sure, activating your guys can be pretty relevant too, but doling their guys to slow down the attack, setting up a control deck is where Lightning really, really shines, right? But if Moshri's in play and you pay your 4 CP for something that literally does absolutely nothing, and then they bounce it to your hand for the price of also nothing, I think you're in a world of hurt. Lightning, to be fair, I kind of like to jump on people about how they slept on Lightning, but to be fair, maybe they weren't thinking of it without Moshri, right? Like it's a whole different card if Moshri is legal. It might, honest to God, it might not even be playable in a Moshri legal format, but right now, it's probably, in my opinion, one of the best cards in the game. Like that's how much of a difference it makes.
I agree with that.
And that speaks to how good Moshri is too, by the way.
Yeah, no kidding. I wonder too if, since it's a promo card, since it's not part of Opus 16 or Opus 17, it's this promo card that comes in this anniversary set. I wonder if that just naturally, because most of those promo cards tend to just be like, yeah, okay, that's cute. No one's going to use that. So I wonder if that had anything to do with it. I was like, oh no, there's a really strong card in here.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say because like the other cards aren't unplayable. The unit's fine. The Titus could be good in a world where we didn't just get one of the best. Not Titus, Squall. Sorry, Squall could be good in a world where we didn't just get one of the best Squalls ever printed. Very awkward that his name's Squall. Like, imagine if that card's name was Zell. Like, I think it's a really cool fire deck, But I mean, it's hard to say.
I tested with all 3 of those cards. I'll just say that right now. I didn't test with the Unititas. That's kind of troll, I think.
Yeah.
But I had Una in Soiree for a little bit. Like in the Soiree build that I was playing at the event. Like I thought about playing that card. You play the card and it says I win combat.
Yeah.
That's what it says. So it's
which is
like,
really good in the Soiree mirror.
Yeah.
Yes.
When
Yeah,
you can
so-
on that story mirror, that's where you want to be.
Exactly. So, that's actually I didn't play Luca, and that was my biggest regret. And that also went to combat in the soiree mirror. So, but yeah, I think all 3 cards in the anniversary box are pretty good. It's just like if you're ever playing some Magista strategy, you're gonna play that Squall.
Yeah.
And Lightning. The first time I read Lightning, I was like, "That's a really cool card," but it doesn't have an entry effect.
Yeah.
Right. Well, so without Moshery, what are people going to do to interact in a like cheap manner to get rid of it now? Usually now, use a summon or a Typhon or something like that.
Yep.
That's fair. That's not remove 3 summons, bounce your dude. So at least you're kind of trading. You don't want that to happen, of course, but it's just like every other forward in the game. Like that is Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
So
And it dodges some of the removal. It dodges Titan. It does Hecaton.
Yes.
And those are important. Those are important cards to dodge.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at my list, you can see why those are important cards to dodge. I'm playing them. They're very good right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Those 9Ks are huge. Mohammad, since you and Sam played the same list, I know Sam did his own video, but since you didn't do one, let me ask you, what would you say was like your least valuable card in that deck? Or do you think everything performed? I know Kyle, I think you said, gosh, what was it? Yeah, I remember you mentioned you're like, I'd never even use this card, but Mohammad, for you, what was it?
Probably Cactar, to be honest. I think if there's anything I might adjust or change, it might be the Cactar. There's other I'm trying out other cards as well. I think overall, it was good. I mean, when it works, but I felt like it was the least needed card in the deck. As far like everything else felt good. Like the backup lineup, every card just felt right. The forwards all felt great. The Hecatar was amazing. Zalera, like it's one of the few answers we have to things like Zidane and. Even in the mirror, it's really good. So I think really, I would say Cactar was probably the one thing I'm working on making adjustments on, seeing if some other cards might be better.
Kyle, were you running Cactar too?
yes.
So that's the thing about Cactar, right? It's like I think all 3 of us ran it.
I ran it too.
All 4 of us ran it. None of us liked it.
Yeah.
It's just
I don't think I ever used it.
It's not a bad card. It's kind of a necessary evil when like you show up to a format where your deck could lose to Kadaj or your deck could lose to Neo Death, like you kind of want it out. Like the card Cactar is a good card. It's just it's not 2 for 1 like most of the other cards that you have in your deck.
Yeah. I put mine in there just for Kadaj or Barrett or some kind of problem forward that I knew I just couldn't deal with otherwise.
Only reasons in the deck. Kadaj, Neo Death. That's it.
Yeah. A lot of Neo X Death showed up. That was surprising.
Well, I told Zaim, I said there are only 2 cards that we can play with, and that's just the 2 Cactars. I said you can make it a Fenrir, you can make it one of them a Menphilia if you want to go heavier backups, but whatever it is, it's got to handle Neo and it's got to handle Kadaj.
Yeah.
And so basically, I guess we're playing Cactar with sometimes 3 damage, which is nice.
Why do you guys think, because I saw Neo X Death in quite a few decks, more than I was expecting. My friend Steven played it as well. Do you think it's just like has a good counter against soirees, or why do you think it kind of showed up again?
It's probably not that good against soirees if the soiree player is really good. But oftentimes I think that soiree players are going to misplay. I think a lot of people misplay into Neo X Death, honestly. And it is a card that can win you games. And this is not a knock on people. I mean, people who are really good at the game, Sam Tool, Matt Okimoto, these are people who have played Neo X Death in very large events. So this is not a knock on you if you play Neo X Death. But it can win you games that there's nothing that a very experienced pilot can do about.
Yeah.
Like if they just don't draw the answer, you win a game. And so it can be kind of this like friendly noob card where like if you don't have an answer, you don't have an answer.
Yeah.
And then like you put that in a format where no one knows exactly what to expect, you can have some pretty good results, I think.
Yeah. Kyle, did you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, so I think Neo X Death was well positioned, to be honest, with this format. Now, it's actually kind of why I kept Leviathan in my deck. Leviathan was probably the worst card in my deck by a landslide. I took the least amount of damage in the tournament, but I'd never bursted a Remora. I only bursted Leviathan against Sam when it was like max value. I got pretty lucky.
Twice.
Yeah, twice. Yeah, both times
One
hitting a
on three.
lightning. Yeah, it was good, but it was still the worst card in my deck. and then Mist Dragon was also the worst card in my deck after that.
Mhm.
And yeah, like with Neo X Death, I wanted out. Like it was on my radar. Also, like I knew Sam was going to be playing it. Sam Tool. He shipped me a list, and I'm like, I think this is actually well positioned. And it sucks he didn't do well in the main event, but I mean he proved his worth in the second main event, so that's kind of awesome. But yeah, I thought Neo X Death was pretty well positioned, just because people wouldn't be ready for it, and if they were playing Soiree, I don't think they were going to be on Oki's list anymore. I thought they were going to move towards either a wind version or just a fire earth version, because there's not very much reason to play the water version anymore. The reason I played it is because I'm a numbers guy, and I refuse to only have 3 Shinju, 3 Amber in my deck, because the odds of drawing either of those in your opening hand, like on your first turn, like if you're forced mulliganing for those cards, is 75%. That's not going to cut it for me. So having Thornton in that math, that made it worth me actually playing Soiree. So that means I had to play water cards, and I guess I'll keep the burst in there. Hindsight, maybe I would have played more Fusoyas or like 6-drop Marsh, maybe. I don't know.
I want to say something too about that, because I think that the higher level players will probably look at that and understand what he's saying just on a surface level. But if you're a newer player and you're looking at what Kyle's saying, it's not just about Thornton though, right? It's because he said that I got to play blue cards, right? He's got to play his water cards. Kyle's the type of person that also ran the numbers. So he wasn't just playing Thorntons to increase his numbers on drawing Amber, because that doesn't you could draw a Thornton every hand, and that doesn't increase your chance of drawing Amber unless you draw another blue card.
Correct.
And so he has to play additional blue cards too, and that's a huge thing to factor in.
Yeah.
It's not just like you can be like, well, I have Thorntons, I have Tyrose to cast my Thorntons, I have Vespius, No, you have to play a certain amount of blue cards, and that number could range between 16 to 20 or higher, depending on what you want to play. That's maybe even on the higher end, but you have to run that math. And it's not just as simple as being like, well, I can put Thornton in my deck and now I can cast my Amber.
Yeah.
Because you're going to have a really bad time if that's your plan.
I think that right there, when Soirees first came out, some people compared them to like, oh, they're like new mannequins. And I was thinking like, why is this deck as consistent as it is? I'm amazed it doesn't brick as much. And you have to remember like that in mannequins, your searcher was lightning, so you needed not only that, you needed another lightning card to get it, which then searched out an earth card, which means you then needed an earth card to play that card, and then you were finally color fixed. Whereas Soirees, it's 3 big cards are all earth, so as long as you have a single earth, you can get them out in any order you want.
Yeah, and also with Thornton, Thornton was just so ridiculously good for me all tournament. Like, I mean, the other water cards were kind of whatever. I mean, obviously Vessia is good.
Yeah.
But,
did you play the Anthem backup? Was it Luca?
No, that's the one thing I wish I did, because in testing I would Thornton for Luca like 70 or 80% of the time. Like if I already had Amber Shinju, I'm getting Luca like immediately. That card just did everything. It protected me from Titan, Hecaton. Yeah. So that was my regret, was not playing Luca. But with Thornton, being able to also get your out to anything like Neo X Death was also big. Or, Thornton for Shantoto. That's a thing, Some people are like, oh shoot, or even Thornton for Amaterasu. Like I had a random one of Amaterasu. That was actually my 50th card in the deck. I don't like it personally in Soiree, but there are board states that you just cannot beat. Like some Soiree decks can't beat Althea Shantoto. Yeah. So having an out to that with Amaterasu is something at least. So, but yeah, on the Neo X Death thing, I definitely think that it's pretty well positioned. But now that it's one of those things. I don't know if you know much about Magic with Dredge, but it kind of feels like that, where if people aren't ready for it, they're gonna lose to it. But once people are ready for it, and you can be prepared for it. There's so many answers for it. It's just, it's going to creep up every once in a while, and it's going to take some tournaments. If you're not ready for it, then you're going to lose. If you are, then you're probably going to win. That's how I feel.
I think that people who consider Neo X Death, I don't know if Kyle ever is one of them, but I always consider Neo X Death as the deck that I might bring. those type of people are not forgetting to bring their tech against it. Like, that's the thing. But the average player is like, well, I just have to be able to beat Soiree and Avalanche, and I'm good to go.
Yeah.
New X-Death can like raise some havoc if it's unprepared for.
So speaking of being prepared, I want a little insight from you three. And Mohammad, I'll start with you. So Portland ReRaise is coming up in August, and I believe Rebellion's Call comes out like the day of or the day before. So it's not going to be legal for it. So this will still be an Opus 16 tournament. Do you think we're going to see anything new, or do you think everyone's going to just kind of stick with what they know at this point, stick with soirees, maybe Ice Earth, maybe some wind stuff? What do you think?
I think we're going to see a little bit of the same. I think now people will be more prepared for Ice Earth for sure. There's no way they can go into Portland thinking, Ice Earth's not going to be an issue. I think we proved it with first and second. But I do think that it is possible for decks like Soiree to be prepared for it by, like Kyle was saying, having a more diverse forward lineup.
Mm-hmm.
And that does obviously make it more difficult. If you throw in, like, for example, Zdanes or something, that definitely plays an impact. I think that's one of the cards that scared me the most against people who ran in Soiree. So, I do still think we're going to see a lot of Soiree. I do expect a lot more Avalanche. I was actually surprised by how few I saw this weekend.
I was too.
I think Avalanche is still in a really good place, if not even better now. So I do expect to see a lot more of that. I don't know if we're going to see something new, other than the fact that we will be seeing a lot more Lightning. I'll be shocked if we don't see a lot more of the new Lightning, because that card is just so good.
Well said. Say, MKP, anything you want to add to that?
I'll say that, yeah. I think that the Soiree decks actually can beat Ice Earth pretty easily by jamming like 3 Q-Sis and 3 Zdanes.
Mm-hmm.
But Zidane is a nightmare.
Oh, he's terrible.
It's a nightmare. Because you have to name 4. If you have a second Arcanist, then you can name 2. But they have other threat numbers. But just them playing it is like already putting you ahead. And then like if you put a Warwire in play, you're definitely decking out first.
Yeah.
And then they don't have to attack you. That's the thing. You don't have to beat me in combat if I draw more cards than you.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, actually on that, Sam, only reason I'm sorry to cut you off. If you in my stream match against Icewind in the game that the second game I think it was, he would have won actually if he just kept reusing Zidane and Althea. I almost decked out. I think it came down to 1 card left in my deck or something like that. And if he had just done 1 or 2 more Zidanes, I would have actually lost that and gone to time, and I don't think I could have beat him in time. So it is actually really frightening.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you jam 3 Q-Sith, 3 Zidane, and like that literally alone will fix the Ice Earth matchup. Now, maybe Ice Earth kind of developed some technology to deal with that. I don't know. But for as far as like Portland goes, I don't think that Soiree is. Let's see. I want to make sure I say this correctly. It is probably still the deck to take if you build it correctly. It's probably still one of the better decks. You just can't build it to where it doesn't have an out to Ice Earth.
Yeah.
I think that in a way, this probably sounds a little bit conceited. I feel like we ruined Portland for some people because. You have to prepare for Ice Earth. I mean, I felt like my grind to the top 8 was pretty easy, and the fact that I got there and Zaim got there in second says a lot about the deck. Because Zaim's a shitty player, and he was able to go undefeated, and then he made it all the way to the finals, bro. Like that says something about this deck, Like,
if even this guy can win with it, come on, folks, what are you doing?
Bro, I mean, and not only this guy. This guy is first off king of second place. He's always the.
No, that's me, bro. That's me.
Okay, well, let me just say this. Not only this guy, but I taught him this deck in like 2 days.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a good deck, and I'm not saying that in any type of like authority type. I just feel like if you think that you're gonna go to Portland and just hope to beat the players playing Ice Earth, you're not. If a good player's on Ice Earth, you're going to have a big problem. So I think you need to prepare. I think Zidane's a great place to start. That's probably just the best place, in my opinion.
Prish is also something to consider. It's,
Prish, yeah.
Which one? Yeah. Which Prish?
The 2CP.
Drop that breaks a monster.
Okay.
But it's not good enough. It's not good enough by itself. Whereas Zidane is probably good enough by itself.
Yeah.
Like, my opponent almost beat me in the top 8 on the back of Zidane both games.
Yeah.
Like, it was just...
I didn't think anything could replace the Opus 3 one because it was so universal, but man, this new one is a terror. I won my first round. I was never going to get to be able to loop him. He had removed too much of my break zone with Mist Dragon. So I just put Zidane out, stole his best cards, his White Tiger, Lassie Nimbus, his Gentiana. I was like, oh, okay, I'll just beat you with your own cards. And like, whew, that card is just gross.
They have the same name.
Yeah.
They're both very good.
And Zidane, I don't know what was up with Zidane, but every opponent he used Zidane against me just got my lightning. Every single
really?
time. It was a freaking lightning bait. I don't know what the hell was going on, but it was so ridiculously annoying.
They were best friends.
Mine hit Arcanist, and let me tell you, I don't want to face Arcanist in the mirror match when I have a 5-6.
Yeah.
It was quite obnoxious. Yeah.
KP, did Ishtola do much work for you? I thought that might be a pretty good card since it's 3 cost, big body, it's got haste. He can't, he's got to use another Arcanist on it, or did that not end up doing much for you? Or
So I think my issue with the Ice Earth matchup was like, yeah, I do have diverse costs, but I have like 1 forward for every of that cost. That's the issue. So yeah, having Ishtola and Susano, yeah, that's the right way to go, but I need more of that. I need more 3 drops or more 6 or 5 drops. Like having just one of them, they can either just like dual freeze it or kill it and then keep naming 4. Like it's not enough.
I went to damage in game 1, and then I Shantoto'd his Ishtola, for example. So that's already 2 down. And then his Susano put in some work, though. I mean, like that Susano put in some work, but it was, it's not enough when I drew the second Arcanist.
Gotcha.
Right.
Plus, Yish has the haste keyword, doesn't it? If I'm not mistaken.
It does. Yeah.
It does. So that we have a way to deal with that also, which actually helps us.
Yeah, I was
we like some 4s with haste.
I was wondering how much you guys use that because I saw it in your list. I was like, oh, I wonder how often that came up. But
a lot. Sid Sophia is very fucking good Earth card.
Yep.
Very good. Like, so much so that I really, really wanted to play 3. And Zaim's like, I think we should diversify a little bit in case we draw multiples. And so we played Lael. But if you're just full in, like, I could see running Sid Sophia at 3. That card's very good.
Travis, you should have saw me and Sam's first match in Swiss. We just kept complimenting each other's decks. Like,
oh, really?
Every time I'm like, Sid, I'm like, wait, you can give your guy haste. That's kind of cool. Yeah. And he's like, are you playing Lightning? I'm like, yeah, I'm playing Lightning. Are you playing Lightning? Yeah, of course. Yeah, like, it was just so awesome. Like, it's cool to see stuff like that come out of, and I think a lot of this, at least from my perspective, a lot of it is because Monstery did get banned. Like, like the whole haste thing. I mean, I don't know. Maybe you'd still play Sid in Ice Earth, probably. But the thing is, like, haste isn't really the answer. I feel like at that point, if like, would I be playing Susano and Ishtola in my deck if Monstery was legal? I don't think so. So like stuff like that, like everything changes. So, yeah, I don't know where I'm going with this.
Oh, it's okay.
Sid Sophia is great, is what he's saying.
Yes.
It is really cool. And I doubt that we're the only deck. Like, the thing is like, there's so many things you can do with Sid Sophia. Don't forget, if you're playing Sid Sophia in your aggro decks, you can still haste from some of your forwards who've already been in play and give them to forwards that now are entering play.
Yes. Like, your forward always has haste. It's like forever. Even 3 turns later, it still has haste.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a great point. I appreciated looking at your list that I always appreciate when people can think about the game differently, and I'm very much stuck in a, you got to have 23 to 25 forwards, 9 summons. And so when I saw your list, Sam, I was like, oh, man, he's like, I don't think you even had 20 forwards in your list. I think you had sub 20 forwards.
16, I think?
Yeah. And, like, I'm just not brave enough to run that few.
Like, dude, we only have, like, 16, 17 forwards in our deck. And I was like, yeah, man, that's what I'm trying to tell you. We're not attacking.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. You only need the boss man. When the boss man comes in, you do what the boss man says, and that's good enough. Yeah.
No, that's cool. I love seeing that variety of, because again, it's hard for me to break out of that pattern of like, oh, it's got to be this number, this number, this number. It's like, no, you can go really low as long as it, accomplishes the goal you want it to.
But you have to have a reason to, right? Like the same thing, when I first joined this game, I was looking at lists, and I would compare the number of forwards they had with the number of summons they had with the number of backups they had. And then I'd go back to old Magic articles and look up Magic decks and then do like numbers ratio for making sure you draw the right lands with the right creatures. And I was like, well, I want my Final Fantasy deck to follow that mathematical formula from Magic, and that's actually worked out really well. And I know KP's also a Magic player, so I think that probably factors in some of his math. Is like these, I wouldn't say solved, but these numbers have been kind of figured out to what's right.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is like in an aggro deck, I'm sure that you want 24 to 30 forwards, but we're not an aggro deck, and we're not attacking. All of our forwards want to be something that comes into play, does something, and then does something every single turn. Gentiana does something every turn. Robel does something every sorry. Robel does something every other turn. Lightning does something every turn. Faisal, Orphan. These are things that do something every single turn, and that was a really big. If I'm going to play this card, does it do something every turn? If not, I need to play something else.
That's fair. Awesome. Go ahead.
Real quick. Shout out to Frank Karsten, because I'm sure Sam, he's the Magic person we're talking about here.
Okay.
He's a big math person. Yes. Anything. So I don't know if I've showed this to you, Travis, but like just like Versatile numbers and stuff like that. Got it because of Frank Karsten. Like,
okay.
That's literally it. I mean, Sam talked about Versatile before. Like it's once you get to it, it's actually pretty easy. Once you understand it and comprehend it, it's pretty simple. But yeah, it's very important because it lets you know how greedy you can be and how like think about all the decks. I mean, back when I started, the stencil was play 17 backups.
Yeah.
That's it, and then have like 9 summons and then the rest forwards. Yeah, and when you know the math, you know like when it's okay to be greedy, and that's what like with the versatile backups. I'm like 6 backups. Okay, what are the odds of drawing that like 1 backup in your opening hand, or like, and you also everybody has their own number, because it just depends on what percentage you want.
Willing to, what it off.
Yeah, and I've always been like 5 out of 6, like a die roll percentage, like 83%.
I think better players want a more consistent deck, and newer players, I think you want a more all-in deck, and you want to try to get lucky a little bit sometimes. I think that there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, and obviously when you find that middle ground, that's the sweet spot. Is when you can be consistent and sometimes get lucky. Like Versatile, that's perfect.
That's why Soray is so good. It's that middle spot for a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, and that's the thing is like, okay, imagine a world where a Soiree player always hits Amber Shinju. Okay, if that's the case, my version of Soiree is not the deck to play. It's not. Like, there's like the water cards, they're there, whatever. But there's just a better version of the deck if you're always going to hit Amber Shinju. So that's a way to think about it too. Is if you're playing to lower your consistency and add more power, there is a better deck out there. Like, don't take my list. But if you want to always, draw your Amber Shinju and not rely on luck as much, then play the Thornton route.
That's why I'm not a fan of Cody playing Versatile for so long, right?
Sure.
It's like Versatile, like eventually it's just going to bite him. Like, he might spike a tournament. Cody's good enough player to like play some of these good decks, I think, and like do really well with them. But if he's put a lot of faith in like this, I'm gonna go big and get lucky, and I don't know, man. Like, because I mean, I don't know how many of you guys have played. I know KP's played a shitload against Cody. Cody's a damn good player. And Versatile's one of those decks I feel like we can punish that. Yeah, you can play the deck really, really well to where you can rebuild after sweeper, but sometimes that guy's going to play a scale toad against you like I did, right? And then you have to go wide, and they're going to draw the Hekatron chair, And I feel like, as you become better and better at this game, you want a less powerful deck that has more consistency. Like my deck has no EX bursts that really matter outside of Orphan. Lightning can be great, but it's just not a very big one, right? No, and I don't have a bunch of 3-drop and 5-drop backups. No, it's just I want to be able to draw my 2-drop backups and then play my 2-drop backups into the line. That's all I want.
Yep. It was funny because me and Cody talked a little bit about what deck he should play for this event, and we're joking around about, I'm just going to take Versatile at the end of it. And I'm just like, you probably shouldn't take that. I'm like, there's a reason I am off of Versatile. Like I'm not trying to sound like I'm the end all be all Versatile person, right? I mean, I kind of made it famous, I guess, whatever. But like, no, like there's a reason I'm not playing it. It's because I don't think it's good right now. And there are reasons why it's not good. What'd you say?
Because Stern's not legal.
Yeah, that's another. Well, it was played a little bit before Stern, but Stern definitely helped.
Yeah.
Like, but I even told him, I'm like, dude, I bet there's a mono ice version out there. Like, seriously, with Lightning and Arcanist, like, just do that. Like, Lightning, dole your guy, Zalera it. That sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
Like, there's your spot removal. But yeah, enough harping on Cody, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, my point wasn't really to harp on him. I mean, I think he's a great player. My point is that there's a level of power that you need to give up at some point. And
Yes.
Birthdail is just one of the most powerful decks. It can absolutely, like, if you watch Cody, he was done within like 3 or 4 minutes of sitting down on average.
Yes.
Did you not? Like, it felt like he was always walking over, looking at me, and I'm like, did you need to buy again or something? I don't understand. And I just feel like the fact that he would walk over to me every 5 minutes or around starting told me he was playing Burstdale because he's just outpowering his opponent. But that's just going to bite you in the ass sometimes.
Yes.
And if you're a good player, there's still nothing you can do about that. That's the problem. And look at my match with Cody. As good of an opponent as he is, sometimes his Burstdale hits 2 and sometimes it hits 1. What are you going to do?
And then here's the other thing too is we're in a format now where if you do hit that 1 or 2, like the punishment is real. Whereas like 2 sets ago, it wasn't that real. It was like, okay, that sucks, but they're not gonna like windmill slam you. Whereas like now it's like, oh, you miss, okay, Adele Chinju or Adele Irwin or something, right?
Yeah.
Like they're gonna take their turn and it's going to be powerful. Back in the day, there's just a chance for it to be powerful, and now I feel like everyone's deck's so powerful that you will get punished.
Mohammad, anything to add to that?
No, I mean, I think they know Kyle better than I do, though. I've played Kyle a few times. He's a great player. But, you know, we all have our pet deck that we love. You know, I love Mono Water. Like, that's just what I played it so much. I loved it to death. It was really hard to move on from it. And, I mean, I even took it to Nats 2019. And looking back, like, man, that was not the right choice. And it was hard. It is hard when you really love, when you have, like, a pet deck that you just love and you want to always do well with it and you want to take it all the way. But, I mean, it just, at some point, I was like, okay, I can't win with this anymore. I need to learn other things. I have to learn what other decks do. I need to become a more consistent player with everything. Yeah. And that's why now you'll see me with a lot more different decks. Back in the day, anytime I went to events, people were like, okay, he's definitely on Mono Water. Now, I mean, like Kyle said, now he's no longer able to predict what I'm going to run.
Speaking of Mono Water, did you play the new Mono Water, the one that was like the Folka, the Titus? Like, that deck was so interesting to me because it kind of comes out of nowhere at the start of the set, uses Tross. Everyone was really excited for it in Florida, and it got pretty high up there. I think it made the semifinals, if I'm not mistaken. But then it just kind of seemed to keep going down and down and down after that. And I don't know if any of you saw it. I didn't see anyone playing it at Omaha. So, 1, did you play that deck? And then 2, everyone kind of tell me what happened to that deck or, you know, whatever. Go ahead, Mohammad.
Yeah, I did play it. I took it to the Win a Zac event at one of our locals, and I did end up winning the entire event with it.
Okay.
It is a really fun deck, a really cool deck, but Mashri's banned, so I just don't think it works. I honestly think Mashri is a big
disagree to that. I'm going to take a sharp disagree to that.
I was going to say, I know we had that on Facebook, because I was like, oh, Mashri's, and Sam was like, no, I don't think so at all. Kyle, you go ahead and go first, and then we'll let Sam do his rebuttal.
Yeah, I think it exists, but it's going to have to play more forwards. Like, it has to.
It'll be it definitely will be a different deck.
Yeah, there still might be a low backup count, and I think that's probably correct. But
do you think it can still do the same style of, like, just letting Titus go in, bouncing people out of the way?
It's not free to do that, but probably. When I say free, I mean you have insurance with Mashri.
Yeah.
Like, Trost definitely got way worse because you don't have Mashri, but it's still very good. It's just now you're more reliant on certain cards. So like Folka for bouncing, you're gonna have to find another card that fills that gap. I actually think there's a Japanese deck list out there that did. Actually, I will look right now. I'm pretty sure there's a Japanese deck list without Mashri that won a tournament already that with Mashri banned. But yeah, I think the tempo strategy is still there. It's just you don't have like a bail you out, like get you out of jail free card kind of thing.
Gotcha. Sam, go ahead. I know you were more in the no Mashri's.
Really, really good light card that likes to bounce things in the format.
Could it begin with an L?
I could definitely slot that right on in there. Again, I agree with Kyle that you're going to have to change the deck list a little bit. Like, I think, like, the 9 CP Leviathan of the world kind of probably becomes a little bit better, especially because it's pretty good against our deck. And I think that, yeah, you make some changes, but I don't feel like I was ever losing that match because they had Moshri. I mean, definitely it's a good card. I mean, it's a great card, but I think that the deck is very survivable without it. It just depends on how you play. But you want to move stuff out of the way. Lightning's your girl. She'll move stuff out of the way for you, and she'll attack and do a lot of cool things. Yeah, and I'm not so sure. I mean, as weird as this sounds, it doesn't have to stay mono water, right? Like there are other versions that you could be playing. Yeah, your summons need to be water. Nothing in the other deck has to be water in order for Folko to work.
True.
Right? It's not like the deck is pigeonholed into playing mono water. It's just that it was very consistent that way. So you shouldn't, again, good players aren't going to add a splash if they don't need to. They want to keep a consistent deck, right? And, maybe now with Montreal gone, like, you have to splash, but there's definitely cards that are worth splashing for.
Yeah.
Not to mention, so I just linked the deck list.
Sure. I'll put it in the link description below.
Okay. And something about lightning. There's a water version of it.
Yeah,
just throwing that out there. So
yeah, and it has a special. Just saying.
It does. Yeah. So
if you ever draw an extra light one, you have a water special.
Yeah. So there's that to it. That's kind of cool.
That's a good point. Okay, so since we kind of touched on that, I have a meta question for all of you, and this is something I've been wondering for a while. So I'm going to take us back a little bit, going back to like Opus 10, Opus 11. Since about Opus 11, it feels like the meta has changed very consistently, and I'm sure all of you have been playing longer than me. I kind of started near the end of Opus 7. But from Opus kind of 7 through 10, you, of course, would see new decks with new cards that would come out, but there was still like, the Earthwind Datalum is still good, this thing's still good. And then Opus 11 hits, and obviously like March Ritz was like the big thing. But then that completely disappears. Amaterasu comes out, you get these Storm decks, you get Samurais. That disappears. Now you've got Sophie. That becomes Sophie Doga and the super aggro meta with Stern and the Primals. That completely disappears, and we have Avalanche, Sky Pirates, and Twins. And Sky Pirates was what I was originally going to take, and I still think Sky Pirates is just a bonkers deck. And like with every other meta, it just disappeared. And some people have even said, I wonder if Soirees is now just going to disappear in Opus 17. So do you guys think... are the cards that are coming out so strong that they're instantly replacing these, or do you think the players are giving up on it too quick? And you obviously have some other game background, but that's just kind of crazy to me that these decks that seem so good are just gone in one Opus. So please give me your thoughts on that.
Who first?
Let's start with we'll go down. Start with Kyle, and then we'll go Kyle, Mohammad, Sam.
Okay. So I'll start with saying this isn't Yu-Gi-Oh. That's what Yu-Gi-Oh does. And the short end is every card game's like that, where you have even Magic is like that. But the thing is, like, deck lists evolve. So an example, I'll just say Versatile because I played a lot of Versatile. But that deck lived like what, 2-3 sets? Mm-hmm. It just evolved and adapted. And decks do that. Think about how long YRP was a deck, and then it fell off. Yeah. Same kind of thing. It adapted, and then it unfortunately wasn't good enough anymore. Like, is there still a 50-card deck you could play for YRP? Yeah, sure, there is. But at the end of the day, it's some people think what is the most efficient thing to be doing, and that's not always the new set. But also, people like playing with like the new cards. So, as for, is Sky Pirates still good at this time? Actually, that's a deck because it's wind. There's wind in it. That's a deck I tested for this event also, and I actually brought it with me. I wasn't going to play it, but when I was playing fun games, that's the deck I played with Sky Pirates. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I definitely think there's room for innovation of taking an old deck and making it good with the new cards. I think an example of that is Palamporum. Like, there were people playing Palom Porm at this tournament without Mashri, like, and it. I don't know exactly how they did, but like it existed. Like, you can put your own twist on it and possibly get pretty far with it. I think. I mean, I even saw Rydia Palom Porm, like the 3-color deck. I mean, I would even say, even though Cody played Versatile, I could see, like, yeah, there is a playable Versatile list. I'm not a fan of that, but, like, yeah, it exists. But it's just, is it as powerful as it once was? And that's where you got to evaluate, is, are there any new cards that make the strategy better? If it doesn't make it better, then where is it? It's stagnant. So you got to find cards that enhance your strategy. Otherwise, it doesn't really matter. So with Pirates, what they got, like Leviathan, like the summon Leviathan, and that's basically it. Like, I think Sasha, won the first the first event of the tournament.
The European one won it too, and that's kind of why I was like, well, it's still clearly performing. So yeah, I wondered why everyone over here gave up on it.
I think Leviathan was the only new card. I could be wrong, but I think that was it. Like, that's an example of, I think, okay, yeah, Pirates, it's the deck to beat in the format at the very beginning, right? When people don't know what's solved yet.
Mm-hmm.
But once it's solved, you kind of move on. Like, I personally don't think Pirates is there right now. With Mashri banned, it's definitely better. But with Mashri legal, I think it's just like, there's no way it's on the level of Mashri.
Sure.
I just don't think it is. But you're also looking for enhancements to your deck. If the new set doesn't have enhancements to your deck, I think you're falling behind other decks that do have enhancements to them.
Okay, that's fair. Mohammad?
Yeah, I think Sasha also ran Water, Lightning, and King Tycoon, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, those were like other
that sounds
two
right.
additions. And I don't know if anyone ran like a Tomos or Tross. They could have thrown those in there. I don't remember.
I don't remember that. But yeah, I mean, I think also for the last like 2.5 some years, we've been at home, right? We haven't had events to actually test. We haven't been going to like local qualifiers and traveling everywhere. So you're not going to see. We're not going to have the ability to really dive as far into a format and really figure out like what's the best deck. I don't think at any point we've really solved a format. Really, I think there's definitely a lot of great decks that did really well, but I don't think we got to the point that we do when we were having actual events, nationals, Crystal Cups. So I'm sure that plays a factor in why every time a new set comes out. Of course, each set comes out, we also have a lot of new good cards, and everybody wants to try them out.
Sure.
And actually, there's also a power creep. I mean, Stern was insane. We saw the impact that had on the game. But overall, yeah, I think we're seeing each set. People just want to try out the newer stuff, and you have a lot of really good stuff in the new sets. Like the story, I mean, I think the entire thing came out in one set.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Real quick, I want to touch on something that Zaim said. Oh gosh, I already forgot.
Power creep, testing from home.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay. He mentioned that we've been playing from home, and I mean, I just realized this. I don't know if you guys, maybe I just live under a rock here, but I mean, this set 17, Resurgence of Power, I think it's called. Yeah, that was delayed like a month, and I didn't realize it had a delay. So technically, we should already have the new cards.
Yeah.
And technically, a lot of things have been solved after. Like, if we already had the new cards, we wouldn't even be. Omaha would have had set 17. Things like that. So I actually think this like post Mashri thing, we're still finding out new things. Where I'm not saying we wouldn't have been able to solve it before, but I think we definitely would have been way more ahead of the times if things were back to normal, and locals were happening and there were more LQs and things like that.
Like how good would Kingsglaive's been in Opus 15 if people had actually really tried to solve it? I mean, that's pretty good. I mean, it's much worse now. It's much worse now, mind you. But my God, like if you ever piloted Kingsglaives, you have all of the options you've ever wanted in your life.
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you think made it worse now? Because I know some people, obviously the Noctis helped it out a lot, which he came out in this set for some reason instead of with them. But
it's just, the thing is that like, it's probably really good at locals and against regular people, every single trick that it's trying to do is on the board.
Yeah.
So there are no surprises. There's nothing you could do. There's no summon you can play. There's no 4 that you'll top deck off the top. Like, everything is, put this in the 4, give you guys plus 2k. Remove 3, this guy's untargetable. Everything that you could possibly try to throw at someone is on the board, and a good player can look at that board and tell you what your options are.
Yeah.
And if your opponent is better than you, you're going to lose on King Slaves. And if you're better than your opponent, you're going to win. That's just my experience with it so far.
Okay, that's fair. Do you think, kind of going back to that point, like with Sky Pirates and the other decks, do you agree with the other gentleman? Do you think it's kind of people just want to try the new cards, a mix of everything, or?
Kind of both. I mean, I don't have the same level of, I just approach things probably differently than both of these guys do, where I am the type of person who really likes, like, my deck. I want no one else to be playing my deck. It's my freaking deck.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I made it, and that's I love that about it. I don't want to play Avalanche. I don't want to play Soray.
Yeah.
Mind you, I almost played Soray at this event because that's how good it is. But I don't want to play those decks. I liked him. I played the Go-Go deck. You know what I'm saying? My first tournament win, I showed up with Ice Water Monsters. Okay, like, or not ice water, sorry, earth water monsters. My second tournament win, I showed up with ice water monsters. All right, I like to play these random off the ball decks. If you ask me if Sky Pirates is better or worse, I tell you it's the most boring deck in the world. It's just every card in the deck is just so good.
Yeah,
like that it has zero interest to me. So I didn't test against it. I didn't test with it. I could care less if my opponent showed up with it. My plan was just to beat them. It's just so boring. I don't know. Whereas, like, Soray, to me, while Soray kind of has that all the cards are good, Soray's kind of fun to play. Like, the EX bursts, and you get to do these things, and there's a lot of different lines, whether you discard your Amber to play your Madam and get blown up by a Mist Dragon or Amaterasu, or you play your Amber first to go get your Shinyu, set up a 2-drop backup, because next turn you're going to want Alexa or Elvis. There's just a lot of lines. And then there's also the new player-friendly versions of the deck that you can build.
Yeah.
But there's just, it's, like, to me, Sky Pirates is my type of deck to play. Like, it's what I would have loved to play in Magic. Like, it's just that type of control tempo deck. It's really good.
Mm-hmm.
But in Final Fantasy, there's just something about it that grinds my gears. It's really strange to explain. I don't like to, I didn't want to play Doga. I didn't want to play Sky Pirates. I was struggling not to play Soray at this event. So I think that a lot of players, like these guys have said, just want to play with the new cards. To what Zaim was saying and to what Kyle's saying, honestly, we haven't figured out the metagame. There's a world where absolutely Sky Pirates is the best fucking deck, period, right now.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right. Maybe it needs Trost, maybe it needs Atomos, and the deck space is already really tight. So where do you put those in? I don't know. But both those cards seem great. Like, activating all his backups seems great for Sky Pirates. Bouncing shit when you have Bismarck and Leviathan in your deck with Trost sounds great. You know, it's a deck that's weak to early damage. So having damage 3 monsters, hey, that sounds great.
Yeah.
All that seems really good. Having another 6-drop that goes and gets a backup, like maybe if you were to play Marsh, for example, and it goes gets those guys, it goes gets Pinello, you know, like there's like, so is Sky Pirates really good right now? It very well could be, but it's boring as hell, and there's a lot of really other cool stuff that you could be doing. And that's my honest reason why I didn't play it and why I think other people didn't play it either, right? Like Palimporum, that deck is really cool, right?
Yeah.
Like, what's cooler than assembling Splinter Twin, right? That you can interact with. Like, I know it's not at that level. But
not quite, but yeah, I get it.
It's blue-red. It's blue-red. This controlled deck, you play these two things, and oftentimes if you don't have an interaction, the game ends fairly quickly.
Yeah.
You know, there's just so much cooler stuff you could be doing right now. And that's another reason why Sam's is probably just a fine deck. And will probably get even better, obviously, with the next cards. But my God, is it a boring deck.
Yeah.
Right? It's just boring. No new player wants to play Sam's. And I don't feel like any super experienced player wants to play Sam's. The game plan's too straightforward.
Yeah. I mean,
Sam's very well top-dated this event, but no one wanted to play it.
You're not wrong about soirees in that sense. I've talked to people about, we'll just kind of talk about tribals. And like you said, samurais, they do one thing. They get out the big brave bodies, and then they'll cleave your board down. You know, what did Scions do back in the day? They had haste, so they had haste, and they had some removal. Whereas soirees, because they have every element, they get to do the best effect of every element.
Mid-range, control, or aggro. You can build it till you beat the mirror with Lucas. You can build it till you swarm the board with Kieran's. Right? Like you can obviously be playing lightnings in your deck like KP is, because that card's nuts. But you could be Althea Zidaning, you could be Althea Shantotoing. Like there's you could customize that deck to be any way you want, and yet it's still really fun to play. That's the thing, and that's why there were so many people playing Soiree. It's really good and also pretty fun to play. And also, mind you, it's very cheap. There are no legends in the deck. They're
also true.
You has to have. In fact, you could play a Pauper deck. I mean, Zayn knows this about me. When I play Soiree, I almost never cast Madden. It is absolutely like get your backups into play, then you start casting your Vestvia, then you cast your Merald. Oh, and then they tapped out to deal with the board. Now we're going to cast them Madden. You know? So you could actually play a Pauper version of the deck and still win quite well. I mean, it's just a really cool deck. I don't think Sky Pirates shares that. I think Sky Pirates, well, first off, it's just going to get ran over by Avalanche.
Sure.
Whereas, like, at least Soiree can play, like, oh, you went in all in me? Okay, well, I Elblast your guy. Oh, then I Amber to go get my Merald. Yeah. You know, it's like your EX bursts really matter.
Well, go ahead, Kyle.
Okay, real quick. I want to point out what Sam said about playing Madam later. I actually think, like, trying to say this without an ego here, I actually think the best Soiree players sandbag their Madams. Like, you don't... I think I did it against Sam one game because I had to, where I, like, discard a Shinju, Madam Shinju or something. Mm-hmm. I did it to somebody. That to me is like a free 8K is not a good Madam. That's not how you play the card. And I think a lot of people do that. They'll go like, you know, turn one, discard Amber and something else, play Madam, get back Amber. That's not a good Madam in my opinion. Yeah. Madam is the card that puts you ahead, and that's not a play that puts you ahead. And I think a lot of Soiree players, if I had to put a number, like 80% of Soiree players, they make plays like that where they get back Amber or something. Mm-hmm. Like that's not how you win tournaments. That's not how you get super deep.
I'd rather discard my Madam to play my Amber.
Can I?
Sure.
So can I push you on that a little? Because I've seen a lot of players, I don't know what their skill level is, that there is the allure of that turn one play of, you know, you pitch something in Amber, Madam Adele, put Amber back on the field, search out probably Shujin. And it's easy to see that basically you've put one card in the break zone and you know how have 8 CP worth of stuff on the board. You've got instant attacker, you've got a backup, you've searched out your color fixer. So to me, that does seem very strong. Can you give me a little more about like why you don't think that's necessarily great? Or are you just saying that it's not as strong as maybe a later play?
My example, this is funny because I played a Adele in top 4 with no target.
Kyle's like, that's what you really do.
But yeah, don't do that. But my example is, let's take Mono Win for example.
Okay.
There's a reason that deck usually doesn't play Vada or Bartz anymore. Some people still play Bartz because Burst. Yeah. Well, you know, if you play Vada and you do get to untap 4 backups, people will call that like a free 8K, right? Mm-hmm. To me, that's not good enough. Like, you get a vanilla 8K body, whoop-de-doo. Like, it's not going to impact the board, really. Same thing with Bart's, a vanilla 9K. It's a little bit better because it's a 9K, but you need to do something with that. And also with Bart's, you know, activating your forwards is kind of sweet because maybe you have some...
You do the Bismarck combo, or something.
Yeah. So there's a little bit more with Bart's. But, like, with card like Vada, you know, where you get, like, a free 8K. There's other cards like that, too, that... you get a free 8K out of them. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but like to me, if you can emphasize the power of that, like getting a free 8K out of Adele, that's not what I want. I want it to be a power play. So like Adele, like, you know, a lot of times I will kind of like what Sam was saying with this Pauper stuff, you know, you play all your other stuff out and then at your last chance, you Adele. Or when you know you can't be a Matarasu, you Adele.
Yeah.
Maybe you go Irwin, see their hand, take whatever, but see if the coast is clear. Like, and if it's not clear, let's say you Irwin and you see a handful of good cards, all right? Then you somehow try to get your Irwin killed, and then you Adele, get Irwin, take another good card. Like, you gotta, or maybe you need to kill 2 of their forwards. Same thing. Like, play Merald, try to have it die somehow, and then Adele play Merald again. Like, you gotta use your resources properly. And
on what KP is saying there too is is most people are tempted to play their Amber, or no, sorry, their Madam, and play the Irwin, because you get to take the card and produce 2 4s.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
But 2 4s doesn't mean shit if their hand is Shantoto.
Yeah.
You know
yes,
what I'm saying? Like,
correct.
Their hand is Shantoto Hecatron here. Like, it doesn't mean anything if their hand beats your 2 4s, or if here's another example, or if they have a 9K. If they have a 9K in their hand, then your 2 4s don't mean anything, right? Yep. But if you're able to play your Irwin, take a card, and then later replay it and get another card, that's a huge advantage. And you're also slowing. I mean, instead of blocking twice, you're blocking 3 times now.
Yeah.
And again, in a deck where you want it, you're pretty fair. I think Soray is pretty favored in most long range games. Being able to block a 3rd time is pretty good against like Ice Fire or Avalanche. You know, it's a big deal.
Awesome.
Yeah, and think of it like Renoa flickering, right?
Yeah.
It's like that, but it's just better. Like, it's not a 7K, and it has protection. Like, Madam has protection, and it's kind of like flickering, but you have to let the forward die. So that's the way I look at it. Is it's like a souped up, way better version of Renoa. So
fair enough. Mohammad, anything to add to that?
No, I mean, not related to this, just how we were talking about being able to tweak it and just play. And I think I do feel like it's one of the best decks for, regardless of what level of experience you have. Like, you can have a new player who's just starting the game. You can introduce him to this deck, and it's a great deck to start off with because it is easy to learn a lot of different things with it, and you can actually play it even locally or at any level. And obviously, the more you learn the game and the more experienced you become, the better you can become at the game with Soray and still do well. So I think that's one of the reasons we saw so many. And I mean, I don't think Samurai we knew there was going to be Soray. I don't think we expected how much Soray there was going to be, though. I think my first 2 matches were Soray, then Icewind, and then Soray, and then it was Sam and I. So it was almost all Soray for me in that tournament. I mean, we knew there would be Soray. The amount of Soray was definitely not at that level, but it makes sense because whatever level you're.
I think I faced one.
Yeah, for me it was just all day, and for me that was great, easy road because I'm running anti-Soray. But it just shows that, like, regardless of what level of experience you have in this game, you can tweak Soray and do really well with it.
You guys probably have a lot of experience with this since you've participated in so many more tournaments and you've been to Worlds and Nats, and so you have the high profile experience, whereas mine's a lot more limited. And so I kind of just want your feelings on this. So again, I'd been practicing with Loop for a long time. I felt very comfortable with it. I knew, okay, I know there's this many cards left. I know there's this, and this. And I tested against Avalanche and Soiree and everything. And even though they would clobber me sometimes, I could hold my own against them and I could beat them. So the night before the tournament, that Friday night, I'm testing with my little group, and 2 of them were on Soiree, and I just got annihilated. I think I lost like 10 games in a row. I couldn't open up any backups except Shantoto constantly. And so I'm like, oh man, I've made a mistake. Like, what did I do? You know, how is this going so poorly? And then the next day at the tournament, I went 4-2, got into top 16, which was my goal, and it ran so much smoother. So do you guys have any thoughts or advice or just anything on that? A deck can suddenly run super cold, but maybe that doesn't necessarily mean that, like, it's not working or it's bad. Just maybe it's just running cold, and anyone can start.
Well, your testing was against friends, right?
Yes.
So you were at home, so they know what you're running.
That's what I was wondering too. If it was they knew what I was doing or what I was trying to do.
Yeah.
So
they're not. You're never gonna have. If you're playing against friends who know what you're on, you're never gonna get the same amount of tests. Like, it's not gonna be the same because they know how to play against it or what to expect. So it's gonna always be a little bit different than tournament level experience. So I think when you're at the tournament level and you're playing against opponents who are not expecting the loop, it's gonna go a little bit differently anyways. But I mean, of course, there's always variance, and if you do better in the tournament, that also helps.
KP, go ahead.
That exact scenario is why I pick my deck at the beginning of the week, because even if you're playing for fun on that Friday night or whatever or whenever, if you go 0-10 or something, I would still commit to the deck, like, because I'm committing to the deck of, like, I know this is good right now at this time. I know this is good, no matter what happens throughout the week. I know for a fact this deck is good. Like, that's my mindset on it. Now, if I pick the wrong deck, hindsight, I'll worry about that later.
Yeah.
But I agree with Zaim that, if your opponent knows what you're playing, they might play differently. I mean, hell, I mean, me and Sam played. He literally was like, "Well, there's no Arcanist in my hand on Mulligan." Like, yeah, that matters, you know?
Yeah.
Like stuff like that. Like we knew what we were both playing, and we know like the matchup pretty well. Like that matters for decision making, and rather than going in blind. Like in Swiss, when I played against somebody I didn't know what they're playing, you know, what I keep in my hand and what I don't keep in my hand, that matters. I mean, also like against Amethyst, when I played Amethyst on stream, I made a play that was extremely greedy. I went Amber, go get Elvis. I didn't get a Shinju. I didn't have access to a Shinju. Nothing. I got an Elvis to try and kill her edge, and just like try to end the game immediately, kind of a thing. She ammoed my Elvis, so now I'm like, like I can't cast my cards, you know?
Yeah.
And now if she keeps top decking ninjas, I'm gonna be a little bit in trouble. So I got bailed out because I drew a Thornton, but like, yeah, that's like one of the scenarios. You know, maybe I could have sculpted my hand a little bit better. Maybe I could have just not played greedier. You know, things like that. Like you got to think about stuff like that when you're playing a deck. And I would. The biggest thing is to make sure that your testing is real testing. I don't know how to really describe that.
I was about to ask, can you explain that a little more? Or what real testing is? Obviously, Zaim's 100% right that testing against people who not only know your deck, have played against it 10 times in a row, so they know exactly what you're trying to do. Obviously, that's different than an unknown opponent, but...
Yeah, I mean, so like, when you get to the... again, I don't want to speak with an ego here, kind of a thing, but when when two experienced players play, they're probably going to know the matchups of a lot of different decks, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm sure Sam and Zaim knew the Soiree matchup, like, you know, back of their hand, no big deal, right? But, you know, even other matchups, like Avalanche and stuff like that, like we all know what that deck is capable of, or like the reach of that deck. Like, I think I'm the one who put Hecaton on the map in Avalanche, I think. And that's like now that's on everybody's radar. If they're playing against Avalanche, you know, do they have Hecaton in their deck? Yes or no? We don't know. But it's still on the radar. Like, knowing what that deck is capable of and like the reach of that deck matters. And I think the more skilled players are going to think of stuff like that. They're going to respect certain cards like that way more. So when it comes to coming back to the loop stuff,
Mm-hmm.
you know, if I sit across from somebody and they play generic Wind Earth cards, I'm going to think they might be on loop. Like, just in general. I'm not, you know, there are certain cards that if they discard, I'll immediately put them off of loop. But as long as like they're playing cards that are in the generic loop deck that I can see, then I'm not gonna like fully dismiss it. I guess if that's what we're talking about here.
No, that's fair. By my final round opponent, I opened Nordstalin, played Nordstalin. I go get Telica. The moment I pulled Telica out, he just went, "Oh no!" He's like, "Well, I know what this is." I was like, "Yeah." Sorry, Sam.
Sure.
Go ahead.
You know, I'm thinking back. So I like Kyle's point of like real testing, but I also think that you can kind of do the opposite. When Zaim and I, for example, were testing at night, the night for top 8,
Mm-hmm.
we were testing our opponent. We would have cards in there. So we had Prish in the deck, and one of our opponents was playing it. One of our opponents had Noctis. The other one had Kadaj. And when we were testing, we wanted everything to be as hard as possible.
Sure.
So they're always on the play because that's what most of the Soiree decks, in my opinion, should be on the draw. That's just my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But most of the Soiree players choose to be on the play, and that's where they're comfortable. We put them all on the play. They're allowed to play their Noctis and the Kadaj on the field. They're allowed to party attack with those two cards. Right? We want everything to be as hard as possible. And obviously, like, some of that's not good for like preliminary testing, like going into a format.
Mm-hmm.
But when you know your matchups and you know those types of things, I think like, hey, how can we make this really hard? And then we were winning those games where they could play a Noctis and a Kadaj and party attack. We were winning those games. That kind of speaks to how good we felt the deck was.
Yeah.
But I think that it's okay to make those types of things. Now, you know, Zaim's the kind of guy that will switch decks at last second. KP is the kind of guy who wants to know his deck at the beginning of the week.
Yeah.
I think I am on both ends of the spectrum. I had tested so much Ice Earth this last 2 months. So much of it, a ridiculous amount of it. None of it has been online. None of it has been with anyone. Just with my buddy Travis and just at James Lockwood's events. But it won me. Ice Earth won me a lot of Amaterasus. And I felt pretty strong about it. And I still almost went with Soiree. Like, that's how close it was. I mean, I thought it was really good. But I've also known for, like, showing up the day of the morning and just being like, hey, I switched my deck. I'm playing this. The truth is that, to me, go with your gut. Absolutely go with your gut. If you're feeling, don't back out because you drew Shantoto as your backup. You didn't draw Norse Tilica like 6 games in a row, because that's going to obviously happen, right? That's going to happen. If you put in the reps and you felt good about that deck, you should stick with that deck. But if any part of you was like, I don't know, man, I tend to listen to that voice inside me. If my deck, if I feel like I don't know about this deck, I will switch at the drop of a hat. I mean, because I want to play to me, what's the most fun. Like, that's the number one thing when choosing my deck. And Zaim can tell you, no matter how many times we would lose with Ice Earth during testing, I told him, no, this is the deck. This is the deck. Don't switch. This is the deck. I put in enough testing to know this was the correct call 100% of the time. In my opinion, it was just the best deck. We should play it. You're not always going to get that way. You're not always going to get that lucky. You're not always going to feel that way. You know? If you don't feel that way, if you feel like there are other decks to explore, in my opinion, I think it's totally fine to go with the more fun deck. Just play the more fun deck. That's what I did with Ice Earth when I played Go-Go. I was very tempted to play. I was either between Avalanche, I believe, or Sky Pirates, and I really didn't want to play Sky Pirates. I really didn't. And I was like, there's this Earth Ice deck that I've been kind of toying with. It's probably pretty garbage. It runs Go-Go. We're going to go ahead and play it. I made top 4 with that thing. It was a blast, man.
Go-Go's fun, man. That card's so much fun to play with.
Yeah, so it just depends on what you're trying to do. But, you know, I think that what Kyle's saying with wanting to stick with a deck for a week, that is just competitive mindset Kyle, and knowing that he wants to know his numbers. Yeah. And I'm going to say this with complete honesty. It's no disrespect to Zaim. Is Zaim willing to switch deck? It's because he needs to have some more faith in himself. That's the ultimate truth. You know what I'm saying? Like, he needs to be like, I put in the grind. I put in the work. This is the best deck, and I'm going to play it. You know? But there's nothing wrong with if Zaim says, you know what? I haven't had as much testing as you. I'm going to play Ice Earth. Whereas if I showed the deck to KP, he might have been like, yeah, that's really cool, but I've been practicing this deck for a week, and then in that, it's right for him to play Soiree. I think that every person is going to be different. And for you, Travis, for example, so the newer players who are listening, there's no cut and dry answer. Like, Zaim's answer is very different than Kyle's, which is very different than mine. There's no answer. I feel like just go with your gut and play. In my opinion, play what's the most fun. I honest to God don't think KP would have played Soiree if it wasn't fun, and I don't think he would have played Ice Earth if it wasn't fun. Both the decks are really fun.
Same with me. I ultimately enjoyed doing the loop. I wouldn't have played it if I was like, God, this is just boring.
Because people that play the loop are terrible people. At least.
Nah, bro. I'm a combo player at heart.
Oh, I know. Loop's cool. It just doesn't feel good when you get looped.
No, it doesn't.
Don't attack the loop player. Why'd you put him to 2 damage? Like, that's your fault.
No, absolutely. Okay, so I have one last topic to ask about, and if anyone has anything else they want to bring up, feel free. Otherwise, we can kind of wind down. But I just kind of want to mention monsters, because obviously these Amano monsters that came out this set, these 2-cost ones that have these damage 3 abilities, really awesome. Some more so than others. You know, I'm very kind of disappointed by Spectral Keeper, but obviously Tros and Atomos and even Jin and Fire is quite good. Biblos I really like. But even something like Scale Toad, I kind of thought, well, Scale Toad's day is done. I don't know if he ever even had a day, and he's showing up. Why do you think monsters are so good right now? Or do you disagree? Do you not think they're good? Like, what are your feeling on monsters? And let's start. We'll go in reverse. I'll do Sam, Mohammad, and then Kyle.
So for me, I think that one, like, there are a few cards that deal with monsters very cleanly, like Stern, for example, that are no longer legal in the metagame. You know, not a lot of people play Noctis, for example. Fenrir with Sophie being gone, Fenrir got a lot less good stalking. You know, so a lot of the monster cards are gone. That being said, I don't even think monsters are necessarily that good if you play around them. You can play around Scale Toad. And I feel like you can definitely play a game where you don't attack your opponent to 3 for their Biblos or Tomos until you need to. So it's just hard to say. A lot of people right now feel like monsters are at their all-time best. I don't even necessarily know if I don't know if I believe that. Like Ice Wind is a very good deck and it plays through lock. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
To me, it's hard to say. Skeletoad is a huge part of what my deck's trying to do. And Biblos is as well. If those cards were forwards, maybe I play them, maybe I don't. If they're backups, I definitely play them.
Yeah.
But the fact that they're a little bit harder to interact with definitely helped. But they're not uncuttable. Like, I think Skeletoad's very good in my deck, and so is Biblos. They're actually not uncuttable though. So why are monsters so good? I don't know that they're that busted. There are good ways to deal with them, but I'd say that the easiest ways to deal with them, which is Fenrir, sees a lot less play, and Stern, which is banned, obviously, and then like there's only really 3 decks that can play lock.
Yeah.
But 3 of those decks are pretty good, but that's in a room full of, like, I don't know, let's say the metagame is like a 20 share deck. Like, let's say that there's 20 decent decks that you could play in a tournament, which is probably a fair number, I think. And only 3 of them play lock, so that's pretty good.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, Mohammad?
Yeah, I think it's just the fact that there isn't a lot of options being run right now that allow people to actually interact against the monsters is what's brought the monsters back in popularity. I mean, we were like, even with we were talking earlier about the mono water list, and you had Tross and all the no one was running any way to actually get rid of it. And then in our deck we have Skeletoad and Biblos and stuff. And I mean, sure, don't put them to 3 until you're ready to actually deal with it. But I think it's just because there's a lot less interaction. If everyone was still running like 2 or 3 Fenrirs or a bunch of anti-monster cards, that would certainly change how we would be running this and what we would be doing for this event.
That's fair. One of my last opponent, I felt very bad for him. He had just Tyro, some random backup, and Skeletoad. Like, he went in to get the Skeletoad, and I just Fenrir, broke Tyro and Skeletoad. I was like, I'm sorry. He was like, oh, okay, well, that just did absolutely nothing. Go ahead, Kyle.
I agree with both Sam and Zion's points, but I think there's something else too with the monsters. It reminds me of the Neo Exet thing before, where if you want to answer and beat monsters, you can. The cards exist. It's just people aren't playing them. I mean, Yasmat's not your best choice, but that could exist. But yeah, Fenrir, Locke, Robo Akbel kills monsters, Prish. Like, those are probably the best 4, probably. And I mean, there's other ones that exist too, like Odin.
I want to add
Alexander.
That is the reason Robel's in our deck. It is in there.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So it's not that we did completely disrespect them. It's that, like Kyle said, if you want to answer them, you can. Robel's in our deck for that exact reason.
Good to know.
Yeah. So, now that being said, it depends on what deck you're playing. If you're playing Ice, now you have Shantoto though to bring back the monsters. I mean, in Sam and Zaim's case, Ice Earth, you have Mira also. Just in Earth in general, Mira is such a strong card. Oh my goodness! But all these recursion type cards, these like break a monster effects, they're not always that powerful either. It just depends on where the monsters are. Like, if you're playing a mono win deck, you probably aren't recurring that monster if it gets broken. So that's where it's kind of powerful. I mean, I guess you could like Asura back an Atomos, I guess. But yeah, like there aren't that many, I guess what I'm trying to say is when you're breaking a monster, it needs to be backbreaking. Whereas I think the people who are playing the monsters are prepared for it to be broken.
Yeah.
So that's another thing.
That's fair. Awesome. Well, guys, that's kind of all the things that came to my mind. Was there anything else anyone wanted to mention specifically or talk about, or should we wrap up?
I think it's really awesome. We were talking about when we took our first image, I think it was us 3, right? We were actually on the same exact table 1, going first.
Yeah.
And we were talking about how in Gen Con, it was us and Oki in the Final 4 as well.
Mm-hmm.
And we were saying, how cool it would be if we all make it to the Final 4 again. And we ended up doing it. We were all like, how does that happen? Like, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Sam, were you going to say something?
I was just going to say that, with it being at home, I think that a lot of people a lot of people when they message me, like they'll message me, and then when I reply, they're like surprised, like, "Oh, thank you so much for taking your time." Like, what you don't realize is that like a lot of people in the Final Fantasy community are more than happy to talk deck lists, right? You send me a deck list, I'm gonna talk to you about it. If you want to test with me, I have one criteria. You don't tell people what I'm testing. That's it. I'll test with you. I have no problem with that. Reach out. I think that a lot of people are just so in our community feel like it's kind of like a boys club, like with the people that are together and it's like this community that like they don't share the list outside. But to me, that's not. I'm not that way. If you reach out to me and you want to test and talk shop, I'm 100% down. And so anyone who's listening to this who wants to reach out, do so. And if you don't know who to talk to, follow the Japanese community on Twitter. I couldn't emphasize that enough. They're very forward about their decks and what the metagame is. And there's just so many resources out there. That's how I feel.
Awesome. Kyle, you want to add anything?
Two things. Short and sweet. Play more Cactar. Cactar Summon, right? That card's so good. It doesn't feel like it's good. It's actually kind of medium probably, but it just does everything. It checks all the boxes.
Yeah.
Something we didn't bring up earlier. I actually asked this for Sam. I asked, have you ever gone from damage 2 to damage 3 with Cactar so your Biblos can activate? I had opportunities to do that so I could trigger both abilities of Axstar. So like being able to be aware of stuff like that, I think is pretty big. Maybe you're playing Wind Earth and you want to take a damage so your Atomos turns on, stuff like that. So play more Cactar. Cactar sweet. It's very efficient and it's very, very solid. And then seriously, guys, play Lightning. Like test that card.
Yeah.
Like it. I don't know if it's better than every light and every dark card in every single deck, but like you should seriously consider that card. It's good in aggressive strategies and it's good in non-aggressive strategies. It's very solid. Don't underestimate it. It also has EX burst for some reason. A lot of the times during my tournament, I would be bouncing, like I'd attack with Lightning and bounce my Irwin or my Merald or my Vesvia, just get more value.
So that KP Susano doesn't kill it.
Yeah, like he did that to prevent board wipes. Yeah, like it does a lot more than you think. It also, activating your forwards, so activate your Lightning so you can block with it. Some people will fall for that. Or, enable Ice, dull their guy. Or maybe even Lightning, activate their guy and do something to an active forward. That card has a lot of play to it, and I highly recommend it.
Want cards in your break zone, it puts cards in your break
Yes.
zone.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's very versatile that it can bounce your guys, their guys, and that it can dull and activate yours and theirs. Like it could just hit both sides. Go ahead, Mohammad.
I know. I was just saying, Gentile is another card that just works really well with.
Yeah.
Dull their guys, turn off their abilities.
Gentiana, I've always felt like her and Sid Randall, if this game ever had a sideboard, those are always just like permanent considerations. Because unfortunately, I think some matches they just don't do a whole lot against, but other matches they just totally take it over. So like, yeah, Gentiana is one I always like when I get to see it played because it can really warp certain things. Are we done? Anyone else have anything they want to add?
No, I think that's good, man. I appreciate you bringing us on here. This has been really, really fun. I would do this again without another event.
Absolutely.
Whatever, hit us up, man. This has been fun.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay, so I want to thank Kyle Peters, Mohammad, and Sam Prime for joining me today. Let us know what you thought of this. If you want to hear more discussions like this, it doesn't just have to be to follow up an event. We could talk random cards. We could just talk random meta. I appreciate getting to get the insight of people who, again, have a lot of tournament experience. So it was fun to see all of you there. Sam, I finally got to meet you in person. I think I met Kyle. I know I've met Kyle before, and I've met Zayn before, but it was nice to see you. So thank you, all three of you, for joining. I will have the links to Kyle and Sam's video in the description below. If you're interested in checking those out, I'd recommend it. They give you some just kind of deep insights on their decks. Muhammad just copied Sam, so who cares what he would have to say about it. But anyway, so thank you all for joining. I'm Travis. We appreciate you watching, and until next time, take care.